This is Tennessee Talks with United States Congressman Tim Burchett.
Everybody, I'm Congressman Tim Burchett, and welcome back to another episode of Tennessee Talks. It's great to be back home in Tennessee. Today I'm joining you from our Blount County office, which is in the Marable Courthouse. And this week it was great to see my former colleague and dear friend, the VA Secretary Doug Collins, who was rumored to be the sole survivor during the president's speech last week, which is kind of cool. He came to Tennessee. You know, it's funny, these guys will come and gals will come to the district and won't even call me. And then he comes to Middle Tennessee and calls me. So I said, I think I'll load up and go over and see him in our VA and the good work that he's doing there. He reaffirmed the president's commitment to prioritizing veterans affairs and discuss reforms and strengthening stuff that need to be done within the VA. There's a lot of misinformation, and made a pretty good point of clarifying some things. And the left's putting this out just to scare people. And frankly, it's about the most despicable thing you can do, and they're dirtbags for doing it. They claim the VA health care would suffer, and it's completely wrong. You cut out all the waste and garbage and abuse, and frankly, sometimes some fraud, and it frees up more money for them. He's safeguarded, I think, around 300,000 jobs that are mission critical to make sure there's uninterrupted services. There's a rumor that benefits were being cut. Totally false, another lie. They redirected nearly $98 million towards veteran care and services rather than reducing them. When you cut waste and abuse, you can do that, and that's the whole purpose of it. And there's a rumor that folks are being laid off the Veterans Crisis Line. Of course, that's another falsehood, and those people will stay in place. If not, those jobs will be strengthened. It's all pretty much political rhetoric, as I said, and they're dirtbags for doing it. The left does it, and for some reason they get celebrated for it, and the national news just regurgitates it, and it's just a lie. We're heading back to D.C. next week, Monday, and I'll be working on a few things, but I wanted to explain some stuff that went on prior weeks. The CR is continued resolution. Y'all know I hate those things, but this was the very first one that we've ever voted on since I've been there 7 years of being in Congress. We actually reduced the size of government. We actually stopped spending, and although it was my DC scale, it was a small amount. It was his first time it ever happened, so I felt like that was a good one to support. We actually did reduce the size of government. There's $13 billion of cuts to non-defense discretionary spending, and that does not touch Medicaid or Medicare. And I voted to keep the government open so President Trump and his cabinet can continue down this path of limited government. A bill I've been working on, is very frustrating that folks in leadership and elsewhere, because President Trump sure did embrace it, No Tax Dollars for Terrorists Act. For years, our government's been giving terrorists our money, if you can believe that. And right now, it's around $40 million a week. They send it in through aid. It'll go to the Afghanistan Central Bank, I believe, and then they just take a cut off of it every time. It's like the mob or anybody else. The Lord just takes 10%, but these bunch, they're taking a lot. And it works out to around $40 million a week that we know is getting to the Taliban. Now, if you multiply that across the globe, I'm pretty sure the number is quite a lot more. My buddy Sean Ryan, Navy SEAL, podcaster, he's the one that told me about this. And we've got a mutual friend named Legend. He goes by Legend. He's got a real name, but he goes by Legend because he has a hit out on him. The Taliban has put him and some of us on a list. But, it ought to make you sick to think that your tax dollars, $40 million a week, is going just to the Taliban. Folks, those terrorists will hate us for free. We don't need to give them any of your money. And it's sat long enough, and I'm hoping leadership gets off their butts, frankly, and moves the bill forward. There's another bill I'm working on, the Legislative Line Item Veto Act. The president needs the ability to go in and cut spending. We've had it in there before. It was thrown out as unconstitutional. We tweaked it. We think this court would possibly be okay with this. It would allow the president to temporarily withhold discretionary funding or suspend direct spending and tax benefits for up to 30 days while Congress reviews the proposals. It also includes some safeguards to prevent duplicate cancellations and requires the Congressional Budget Office, which we have problems with too, to estimate savings while the Comptroller General monitors the compliance. All those safety factors are in there, but it will allow the president to make some needed cuts without going through the bureaucracy or just downright corruption of Congress. Another bill I'm working on, congressional stock trading ban. For years, Congress members, both sides of the aisle, have been getting fat. You all know it. I would encourage you to go on a website called The Unusual Whales, unusual WHALES, and read just about what's going on. In the private sector, if you pull this kind of stuff, you'd get popped for it. But of course, members of Congress, we play by our own rules, and it's wrong. Everybody ought to have a mutual fund like I do, like my buddy Tommy Siler does. He manages mine for me. It's around $10,000 to $13,000. I'm not exactly getting fat, but it's gone up pretty well, and I'm pleased with it. But we ought not be involved in individual stock trades. That's just wrong. I've reintroduced the bill. It would stop members of Congress and their families from doing this. I would hope at some point that we would get some guts in Congress. It should be a sacrifice to be in Congress. You shouldn't be treated as a returning gladiator from war or something, because they're making it off this stuff, and it's wrong, and you all know it. Another bill I'm working on, it's called Letters of Marquee, Letters of Marque. Actually, it's pronounced Mark, spelled Marquee. It's under Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. Congress has the authority to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Now, what this does, it allows the president to go with private contractors. Say you have a group of former SEALs that's been trained in this type of operation. You don't have to. They can go overseas and take care of business. For instance, and you have to lay out the specifics of what you're doing. It's just not a carte blanche to go after groups. They can go after the cartels on the border that are over our border, that come across our border, and that in some instances under the Biden administration literally controlled those sections of the border, and we allowed them to do it. These dirtbags are moving millions of dollars of fentanyl across our border. They have been. They're human trafficking. We don't know where 300,000 children are, for goodness sakes, because of this bunch, and we ought to have the ability to do that, and the president ought to be able to do that. It's in the Constitution, it's provided for. The bill draws up. It has good restraints in there. It's not overreaching. And what's going on right now with the Houthis in the Red Sea, an argument made that we ought to be able to do that there. That's for another time, but it is an option that we have available to us. And those are just some things I'm working on. I apologize not having you a really cool guest. I'll work on that for the next episode, but it is a incredible pleasure and honor to serve y'all in Washington, D.C. And I want to thank y'all for joining me for another episode of Tennessee Talks. And make sure that y'all follow me on Rumble, YouTube, X, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. As always, thank y'all for sending me here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Tennessee Talks. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Keep up with Congressman Burchett by following Rep. Tim Burchett on Twitter and Instagram, and Congressman Tim Burchett on Facebook and YouTube.